But we also have to talk about the things such as weight, right? People, because there are some actually pretty, if you look at them at first glance, they seem pretty solid. So I've got a 2017 systematic review and meta-analysis of observational studies, and it finds that consuming aspartame increases in BMI. There's a higher incidence of obesity, and also other diet-related conditions. But what I need to sort of make clear, I need to read this out now because this is something I found which made a really good point on this study, and why you can't just look at it at face value and think, fucking hell, look at the size of this paper, look at all these people they looked at, it's making people fat. And that is, it is important to note the limitations of observational studies which examine the association between an exposure, such as aspartame intake, and an outcome, such as body weight or a health condition, and their inability to provide evidence of cause and effect. Observational studies are also at risk for demonstrating reverse causality, in which the direction of cause and effect runs counter to what one might expect. A common example of this is a person changing their diet after being diagnosed with a health condition. The disease led to their dietary choices. The dietary choices did not lead to the disease. Additionally, observational studies are not randomized, so they cannot control for all the other exposures or factors that may be causing or influencing results. So the way I can, because I'm aware that might sound like fucking absolute mad shit going on there. The way I'd simplify that is, if you think about when people drink sugar-free drinks, yeah, let's say they used to drink loads of full-fat Coke, they're now drinking loads of Diet Coke. Psychologically, they may then think, oh, well, I've only been drinking Diet Coke all day, I've probably got some calories to have spare here. So they might think, oh, I'm going to have a dessert now because I've just been drinking Diet Coke as opposed to normal Coke. So all they've really done there is, because they're drinking less, they think they can eat more, if that makes sense.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a way to kind of lower your caloric intake. If you are nutritionally oblivious and you've been consuming your usual meals throughout the day, but on top of that, you usually on a daily basis you have, let's just say you're an absolute mad lad and you have 3 cans of, I nearly said full fat Coke then, and I hate that term.
What,
I hate that
Coke?
term. Yeah, my sister-in-law says that, full fat Coke. You show me anywhere on a can of Coke where it says how many grams of fat is in it. I know I'm no.
It's a common term. It's not so pretentious.
I know I'm being pretentious, but God, fucking normies, disgusting people. But no, like, honest to God, like if you used to take that and then put them onto a calorie controlled diet, but they still have their cans of Coke, but now it's 3 cans of Diet Coke a day. I would actually try and lower that, just, try and get water in, etc. But let's say if they was now having 3 cans of Coke, fucking hell, I've confused myself, 3 cans of Diet Coke, but it's now lowered their caloric intake. Yeah, it's going to help. It's going to help if their goal is weight loss, or if for health outcomes they need to drop weight pretty rapidly, etc.
Yeah. And I said with papers like that as well, to go back to that paper, obviously said all that jargon to why it's an issue. And one thing that I want to pick up on that I said was about cause and effect, because it's an observational study, right? And they are basically just assuming that because they were consuming aspartame, that was the reason they gained weight. And because it's not randomized, as it said, because it's not randomized, it wasn't taking into account other factors that come into play. For example, these people could have been having shit sleep all day, midnight snacking, consuming other foods that they weren't aware of, but just because they were having aspartame, they made that link between, okay, there was increase of BMI. But the real truth of it is, in terms of, does aspartame help with things like losing weight, with things like obesity, we do have data that consistently, and I'm actually going to reinforce that, consistently shows that adding these artificial sweeteners into your diet can aid in weight loss. Yeah. And exactly for the reasons that Tom said, if you change from a drink that is packed full of sugar, which is calories, and then you change it for something that has minimal calories, it was literally nothing, then you technically reduce your calorie intake, which is then why potentially you're going to lose weight.
Because you've entered a calorie deficit. It's nothing magical about the sweetener itself. It's not going to reduce cravings, etc. And there is actually a paper on that. Where we go. Yeah, do low-calorie sweetened beverages help to control food cravings? And that was 2 experimental studies. That's Maloney et al., 2019. So yeah, there's nothing inherently special in regards to artificially sweetened beverages, like maybe possibly lowering your cravings, etc. I don't think it's the case. It's just that if you actually swap a full sugar beverage out for, a artificially sweetened one where it's now 0 calorie, then yeah, you're loving your calories. But it's nothing to do with like loving craving.
There's also the crowd who says the opposite of what you're saying. And they're saying that drinking diet drinks, it basically activates the pleasure pathways in your brain, which then makes you want to go for these more highly palatable foods, such as, I don't know, let's fucking say ice cream, for example, anything that's like people like to eat a lot of. They say that, I've drank a Diet Coke, it's made me want something more sweet, so I'm going to eat more of it. And there is actually some research, but it is on animal studies. It did demonstrate an increase in food intake after having some of this, basically the appetite hormones. But what's really important is that when they tried to replicate this in human studies, you can imagine my shock. They couldn't find anything.
Yeah,
it didn't replicate over into human studies. So if someone says to you, but it makes you fucking, makes you want to eat more junk food, that's not true. It's not been proven in any human studies to my knowledge. If you've got some studies on that, let me know. But the ones we've seen, it's not. And they're all, of course, they're all going to be down in the show notes if you do want to get balls deep into some.
I mean, and if you did end up like craving and overeating, I wouldn't necessarily, blame it on particularly artificial sweeteners. It just could be that you generally have hedonistic cravings,